Hangry is now an official word in the Oxford English Dictionary, and it's a combination of two words, hungry and angry. It has a simple definition, which is bad-tempered or irritable as a result of hunger. Today, we have the perfect guest to help us understand hangry and how this condition can increase mental chaos. I'm here with Katie Hart, the owner of Hart Space in Olympia, Washington. Katie is dually certified as a nutritionist and a licensed mental health counselor. During this podcast episode, I'll talk with Katie about how the physiological condition of hunger can cause increased mental chaos and create the condition of hangry. She'll also give us some helpful tips and tools about how to manage and prevent hanger. Welcome, Katie, to Calming the Chaos. Thank you so much for being a guest on my podcast today.
Yes, thank you for asking me.
Awesome. Well, let's just jump right in and have you tell us a little bit about yourself, the work you do, and what led you to do the work that you do.
Okay, like Tracy said, I have a private practice in Olympia, Washington called Hart Space, Mental Health and Nutrition. And we work with patients who have all sorts of different conditions, mental health, food relationship, nutrition. We currently have 3 providers, and we take a whole host of different people and try and help them understand the relationship and connection between what they're eating, how they're feeling, and why they might be having some of the struggles and things that they're having, as well as coming up with some food-based solutions to those problems. We try and do that to prevent people from needing to be on excessive medication to deal with mental health, or unnecessary medication, I might say. One of the things that I notice and believe is that our Western medicine system often resorts to pharmaceutical medication quickly before we assess our foundational health, like in Tracy's podcast, like how are people tending to their mental health? What tools are they using? And for me, I add the additional piece of how are they eating, and are they eating in a balanced way to keep their mood and their emotions regulated? And then if they're doing all that, there absolutely is a time and a place for additional medication.
So nutrition and foundational comes first, and that is the philosophy behind this, to eliminate the unnecessary use of medications.
Absolutely, because I believe, as well as you probably see in your practice, I believe that a lot of people, given the right mental, emotional tools, and given a more foundational, balanced way of eating and living, including the way they're exercising, can actually create a much more stable foundation.
Great. Well, so how did you get into this line of work?
What really got me most interested in pursuing this as a profession was I grew up in a pretty traditional family, but also a very Western diet eating family, if that makes sense. And we grew up in a time where it was diet sodas and it was low carb eating, and my parents were often on a diet and following the latest fad. But what we often had in our house to eat was a lot of refined, processed carbohydrate type food. And I consequently went to college around 17, and I wasn't the healthiest at that point in my life, and I didn't feel the best, and I didn't understand why. So I became really interested in nutrition as what I could change and what I could do differently in my life. And I started doing that once I was in undergrad. I started exercising more. I started feeding myself in a more balanced way. And consequently, I started feeling a whole lot better in my body. And I felt a whole lot better in my mind. And I felt a whole lot more regulated. And I really started to think, I'm onto something really wonderful, and I want to find a way to share this with other people.
Absolutely. So I noticed that in my graduate program, a lot of people came into the world of therapy because they had their own mental health problems. So that's sort of the same thing, and that we are not feeling great, and you decided to get some education about that and be able to share it with others. I think that's a lot of the reason why helpers go into the helping field, because they've had problems or seen problems in family members and friends, and they've decided to give back and learn and grow.
Certainly, yes. And I wanted to be able to help my family more with their struggle. And then I also, much like you just said, people go into mental health, people go into nutrition to work on their own things, and then share sort of the knowledge that they find. And I also had struggle with food addiction at that point,
Mhm.
trying to balance healthy with unhealthy, and also other addiction sort of runs in my genetics. And some of what I may touch on in a bit is part of the combination is always why we become passionate. And part of it is we have a wealth of ability to be more compassionate when we've had our own struggles with different things. Like we really understand a patient's struggle when we've had struggles of our own of some kind. And I believe that's been an imperative part of how all these things, what I do in my work now, and also what I do in my own personal life, how that all came together to create just really what I feel like I'm absolutely meant to be doing every day.
I just really enjoyed this interview with Katie Hart. And I think that the takeaway is that there's hope, that we can all find a more stable, nutritional, physical, mental balance in our lives and move closer to really good well being. So make sure that you listen to the rest of our interview, chopped up into bite sized portions for you. And we will talk about kids, adults, and the difference between the way we metabolize food. We'll talk about some tips that you can use for good nutrition and greater mental and emotional well being. Thank you so much for joining us and take good care.